Hey, and good day. I want to talk to you today about the film I worked on, Regicide, and some of the types of decisions that need to be made when working with film crew, director, that kind of stuff. So, in general on this movie, the director came to me and they liked what I did anyway, before they had ever seen me work on music for film. So that made things obviously a little bit easier. Although I have ended up in that situation before where someone has told me that, and as it turned out, they didn't want me to follow any of my reflexes, and I ended up going on some tangents and canceling the project. The vision is minimal because I have quite a bit of experience watching the narratives of films. My goal is always to add as little as possible to forward the feeling of the movie or what needs to happen in the movie. What I want to talk about is more or less the climax of the film today. This is something where I experienced a decent level of surprise when I was asked to change things quite significantly. And what I'm going to show is my initial revision, which still may have required some work in the end. I thought I was mostly there with the initial revision of this climax. My thought processes on this were the main characters are just parting ways for the last time, and the male character, it appears like they're about to die. So I wanted to bring back the music that had sort of defined their relationship early on, and their relationship is quite tumultuous. So the music itself wasn't joyous. It was sort of a mixture of sweetness and maybe some sadness, maybe some trauma. And that piece of music comes up a few times throughout the film in some different forms. I wanted to tie it back in here at the climax because they're parting ways, and I thought it would hit the audience. But in order to make it feel more climaxy, I add more layers to it. I let it swell up more, and then it sort of evolves into a more confused feeling because the character is trying to escape and things are not really going well during the escape, and I wanted to make a pretty hard transition into the next scene. That's where my head was at when I was making this first version. One thing worth mentioning right off the bat is the timing of where the more exciting music starts is a little after the character starts moving. I wasn't sure whether I liked that. I wasn't sure whether the time lag was good or not. But with initial revisions, when I'm working with the director, I'll put my base level of interest down, certain number of layers, that kind of thing, and I will bring it back for feedback because ultimately it needs to serve the film. And there obviously could be things that I don't consider about the vision unless the vision has been super explicitly given to me, like, hey, in this scene, this character's thinking this, it needs to feel like this. But in the case of this film, I was going off what the film was telling me almost exclusively with a little bit of other feedback. So I was trying to build it up very slowly. So let's check this out.
We are going inside.
How about that storm door in the back?
So we haven't started the final piece yet. So again, this is a mixture of an earlier piece of music about the relationship and some other layers. Makes me wince every time. have needed to add some other layers to this, but the core of it, I thought, was where it needed to be. I'm pulling in some other elements from other moments in the film too, for the audience's sake. And here's where it starts to really fall apart, and she's quite confused. And it's a bit calmer because you can tell the main character is coming up with a plan of her own. So there it is. This is what I initially had for the director and shared with him. And in the case of getting feedback, one of the things I received is we were going to have a rough version for the premiere of the film, which was mostly for cast and crew and some other folks. And he was going to use a piece of stock music, which, I mean, it wouldn't have offended me or anything because it is what it is if it's not realizing his vision. But I wasn't really looking forward to seeing stock music there. People coming to me and indicating, I really liked that piece, but it wasn't even a piece that I had created or something, and it wouldn't be copacetic to the sound of the project. I did a little bit of scrambling. I still have some time before the premiere, but sort of running towards the end of the hours we had allocated to this phase of the project. I decided to add one layer. The feedback that I had received was that this was the climax, this was the closest that we get to real heavy action in the film, and the audience needed to feel the intensity, and they needed to feel that things were kind of out of control and feel like it was explosive. But I wanted to meet the needs that I had too, and I really, really was passionate about having the piece of music that defined the relationship come back. So what I decided to do is rely on my good old friend Subdivisions of tempo and add something over top that felt faster because the subdivision, the division of the beat was different so that it made it feel fast, but still have a filtered version of the piece of music I wanted referenced in the background. So that whole piece that you heard is still there. It's just more obscured. I think I met the need for intensity here, but it's quite radically different. And I just thought it would be interesting for you to see the progression of something like that when it comes to reacting to feedback on your work. I'd also be really interested in which version you like better and why. I'm curious because this stuff is really subjective. Like, both can work for very different emotional reasons. While I've got your attention, I love creating stuff. And I love if it's seen, and I love feedback. I love answering comments and interacting. So if you get the chance to subscribe, if you get the chance to hit the bell so that you see more of my videos, that would be awesome. Let's check out the other version of the scene. I built a whole chaotic layer with a bass line and with percussion on Maschine. And then I have some filtering that makes it vary on a polyrhythm so that the intensity kind of comes and goes in like steps. And that adds some variation to it. And also the pattern itself is quite long and repeats on a weird number of beats. The director had told me that he really liked the way it ended and transitioned into the next scene. And I fully agree. I really love that. So I needed to find a way to transition back more or less to what you've already heard for the ending.
We are going inside.
How about that storm door in the back?
really feel that it starts to work around this moment. Before that, it feels a little too intense for what's happening in the film. And again, this feels very similar as we exit because that was the intent. Cool. So I had some general thoughts as I was watching that. I do think that the overall presentation got stronger with the feedback and with the change. You now have a little bit of everything. You now have more intensity, but you also have the emotional aspect still. You still reference the old piece of music. I think it's just more layered. I think the feedback to push me in a new direction made a positive difference. I'm quite happy to collaborate. I recognize that the film is bigger than my work, and I think that's really important if you intend to do contract work, some kind of scoring or filming work. It's really important to recognize and put your ego more or less on the shelf. Still be you, still put out what you are feeling serves the piece, and still kind of fight for the right thing for the right reasons, but certainly listen and certainly, work with the people that are on the project with you to get to the best product that you can for everyone involved. Our vision alone is not the entire vision of a film. Many people are involved and they all have visions too, and we need to land somewhere that satisfies everyone without really compromising the type of thing we like to create. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you again soon.